In this video, we are going to start with question 1 of the grade 11 question paper. Question 1. So without wasting any time, we are going to start with question 1.1. So we are told that Rulani visited his friend during the school holidays. He left his hometown in the morning and arrived at his friend's house or home by 3. And the clock below shows his departure time. Okay, so we are told that Rulani was visiting a friend and he left where he stays in the morning and arrived at his friend's home in the afternoon. And we are given the clock that shows the time that he left home. Okay, so now we are told to use this information to answer the questions that follows. So we will start with question 1.1.1. So question 1.1.1 says that write down the departure time using the 12-hour format. So we can see that the small arrow, we can see that the small arrow is pointing at 10. The small arrow is pointing at 10 and the big arrow is pointing at 12. So we can see that on our picture on our right, we can see that the small arrow is pointing at 10 and the bigger one is pointing at 12. So we can easily see that the time is 10 a.m. in the morning. Remember, we are told that the clock shows the departure time. That's why we are able to see that the time is in the morning, because even our scenario or our statement says that he left his hometown in the morning. That's why we are able to distinguish between AM and PM, meaning that our time will be 10 a.m. So now let's move to the next question, which is question 1.1.2. 1.1.2. So question 1.1.2 says that write the duration of his journey in hours. So we are told that he left home at 10 and arrived at his friend's home at 3. So now we can be able to see how many hours it took him, because that's what the question is saying. The question is saying that calculate the duration of his journey in hours. So we can see that in between here there's 11, there's 12, there's 1, and there's 2. So we can see that from 10 to 11 is 1 hour, and from 11 to 12 is another hour, and from 12 to 1 is another hour, and from 1 to 2 another hour, and from 2 to 3 is another hour. So in total we can see that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, meaning that it took him 5 hours to arrive at his friend's home. Okay, so now we are done with question 1.1.2 and we will be moving to question 1.2. So in question 1.2, we are told that the bus Rulani uses has a fuel consumption of 13.4 liters per 100 kilometers with a fuel tank capacity of 80 liters. Okay, so without wasting time, we will then move to question 1.2.1. So question 1.2.1 says that determine the number of liters required to travel 400 kilometers. So we need to determine the number of liters required to travel 400 kilometers. So we know that if the bus is traveling 100 kilometers, it needs 13.4 liters of fuel. Okay, so we are told that 13.4 liters equates to 100 kilometers, and the question is saying that determine the number of liters required to travel 400 kilometers. So we can just do the same until we get to 400. So we can say 13.4 liter will travel another 100 kilometers, and 13.4 liters will travel another 100 kilometers, and another 13.4 liters will travel 100 kilometers, and in total we have 400 kilometers. And to determine the number of liters, we can just add everything, but this is the longest way of doing it. If we are not doing it like this, we can just say 13.4 multiplied by 4 and get our answer. Okay, so if we add all of them, it will be 13.4 plus 13.4 plus 13.4 plus 13.4, and our answer will be 53.6 liters. So this will be our answer, 53.6 liters, meaning that to travel 400 kilometers, the liters that will be needed will be 53.6. So even if we say 13.4 multiplied by 4, we still get to the same answer. So it will be 53.6. But I used this first step so that you can understand how to get to the 400 kilometers, and also how to get to the total number of liters. Okay, so now we will be moving to the next question, which is question 1.2.2, but we don't have enough space, meaning that we will just clear what we have already covered. Okay, so now we will be moving to question 1.2.2. So question 1.2.2 says that calculate the cost of full tank if the fuel costs 26 rand point 34 cent per liter. So to calculate the full tank, we first need to check the fuel capacity of the bus. Fuel capacity. And if we look at our scenario or the statement that we are given to help us answer this set of questions, we can see that the fuel capacity was 80 liters, meaning that to determine or to calculate the cost of full tank, we just multiply 26.34 by 80, because 1 liter costs 26.34 cents. So 1 liter cost 26.34, and then we multiply by the fuel capacity of 80, and then we'll be able to calculate the total cost of full tank. So 26.34 multiplied by 80, and we can see that fuel tank will cost 2,107.20 cents, and that is our answer. Okay, so now let's move to question 1.2.3. So question 1.2.3 says that express the fuel consumption in the form of 1 liter is to a set of kilometers. Okay, so we know that we know that 13.4 liters only travels 100 kilometers. Okay, so we need to express our answer in the form of 1 liter. And how do we do that? So we know that, so the question tells us that our left hand side needs to be in the form of 1 liter. And how do we get to that if we know that 13.4 liters only travels 100 kilometers? So to do that, or to get 1 on our left hand side, we divide by 13.4. Remember that any number divided by itself, the answer will always be 1. So we will divide this side by 13.4. Okay, and remember that what you do on your left hand side, you also need to do it on your right hand side, meaning that even on our right hand side, we are still going to divide by 13.4. Okay, and if you divide 13.4 by 13.4, remember the statement I just said. I said that any number divided by itself, the answer will always be 1, meaning that 13.4 divided by 13.4, the answer will be 1. So it will be 1 liter. And now we are going to divide 100 by 13.4. And if we divide 100 by 13.4, our answer will be 7.462 kilometers. The question says that our answer needs to be 1 liter is to a specific kilometer. So this is our final answer. Okay, so now let's move to the next question, which is question 1.3. Now let's move to question 1.3. So question 1.3, we have we also have a different set of questions. So maybe before we start with question 1.3, we can just create space so that we don't have to create it again. So we'll just create space so that we can be able to answer everything. Okay, so now let's move to question 1.3. So we are told that below is the bill of a local town restaurant near Rulani's friend home. So we are told to study the bill and answer the questions that follow. So without wasting any time, we will start with question 1.3.1. So question 1.3.1 says that write down the total number of items in the bill. So if we look on our bill, we can see that the first item is fillet steak, which is 1, and our second item is 500 grams of rump, and our third item will be prawn skewer, and our fourth item will be mushroom sauce, and our fifth item will be cold beverage, and our sixth item will be dessert cups. But if you check the last two, we can see that the quantity was 2 instead of 1, meaning that we are going to count them twice. And in total, our items are 8. But on the bill, we are only seeing 6 items. But if we add the additional 2, it brings us to 8 items, because cold beverages were 2 and dessert cups were also 2. So in total we have 8 items. So now let's move to the next question, which is question 1.3.2. 1.3.2. So question 1.3.2 says that the waiter, which is Tim, served each guest one cold beverage. Determine the number of guests served. So we can see that if one person is served one cold beverage, and he served 2, it means that there are 2 guests. 2 guests. Okay, so now let's move to question 1.3.3. 3.3. So question 1.3.3 says that convert 500 grams of ramp into kilograms. So in this question, we will start by noting down how to convert from grams to kilograms and how to convert from kilograms to grams. So if we are converting from grams to kilograms, we divide by 1000. And if we are converting from kilograms to grams, we multiply by 1000. So if we are, so I will just also write it down so that you can be able to understand. So converting from grams to kilograms, we divide by 1000. And the next point will be converting from kilograms to grams, we multiply by 1000. So converting from kilograms to grams, we multiply by 1000. So if we go back to our question, we can see that we are converting from grams to kilograms. So we are going to apply the first option of converting from grams to kilograms, meaning that we are going to divide by 1000. We are going to divide by 1000. So we know that 500 grams, so our answer will be 500 grams divide by 1000. And let's quickly plug that on our calculator. So it will be 500 divided by 1000, and our answer will be 0.5 kilograms. Remember, we are converting to kilograms, so we need to specify even on our answer that we are converting to kilogram. Okay, so now let's move to our second last question for question 1. So we have question 1.3.4. So question 1.3.4 says that calculate how much gratuity did the waiter, which is Tim, received from the guest. So by gratuity, they are referring to the tip. So we can see that the guests paid 540 in total, but the bill was 486, meaning that the tip is just the difference between between the two. So now we are going to calculate the difference between the two. So we are going to say 540 minus 486, and our answer will be 54 rand, meaning that the gratuity or the tip is 54 rand. So now let's move to our last question for question 1, which is question 1.3.5. 1.3.5. So question 1.3.5 says that show by calculations that the cost of one DZ cup is 24 rand. So we can see that 2 DZ cups costed 48 rand. So 2 DZ cups costed 48 rand. So if we want to check how much one cup costs, we just divide by 2, because we are told that 2 DZ cups costed 48 rand. So to calculate the price of one, we just divide by 2. And if we divide by 2, we can bring back our calculator. So we are going to say 48 divided by 2, and our answer will be 24 rand. And that answers question 1.3.5. In this video, we are going to start with question 2, and we will start with question 2.1. And without wasting any time, let's get down to it. So we are told that Mrs. Malungelo intends to purchase a cell phone. The service provider offered her prepaid and contract options. The attached annexure A shows the graphs illustrating the cost of each options. Okay, so and we do have a cell phone picture there, and I will also attach annexure A so that you can be able to see what's happening. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and answer question 2.1.1. 2.1.1. So we are told to identify one element that is missing on the graph in annexure A. So if you look at the graph, you can see that the graph has no heading. So we can see that the graph has no heading. It's just a graph without a heading. And each and every graph needs to have a heading. So we can see that the title of the graph is missing. So we can say title of the graph is missing. Okay, so now let's move to question 2.1.2. 2.1.2. So question 2.1.2 says that which graph will possibly represent the contract option? Give a valid reason for your answer. So if we look at graph, so I do have graphs here on my board, but even on the right hand side I have attached the graph. So graph A is represented by dots, and graph B is represented by a line. So our question is that which graph will possibly represent the contract option, and we are supposed to give a valid reason for that. So if we look at graph A, we can see that it starts at 150, and graph B starts at 0 rand. So we can easily see that graph A may possibly represent a contract option, because there is a fixed fee that needs to be paid. So we can see that if you don't if you use 0 minutes in a month for graph B, you will pay nothing. But for graph A, if you use 0 minutes, you will still have to pay the 150, meaning that graph A represents the contract option. So we'll say, let us not contradict ourselves. Or let's continue using the black marker. So we will say graph A, because it has a fixed fee that needs to be paid. Because it has a fixed fee that needs to be paid. That needs to be paid. Okay, so now let's move to question 2.1.3. 2.1.3. So question 2.1.3 says that table 1 below shows the list of equations that can be used to calculate the total for each graph. Use table 1 and annexure A to match the graph and the correct equation. Okay, so we have the first equation and the second equation. So we are going to start with graph A. So with graph A, we already know from our graph is that there is a fixed fee of 150 that needs to be paid, regardless of whether a person has used 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or no minutes at all. The 150 has to be paid. So if we look at our first option, we can see that we are given 150 multiplied by the number of minutes. So we are given 150 multiplied by the number of minutes, meaning that if a person uses 5 minutes, we are going to multiply by 5, and our answer will be, so it will be 150 multiplied by 5. Our answer will be 750 for using only 5 minutes. So we can see that this doesn't make sense. A person can't use 5 minutes and then have to pay 750. Okay, so we can see that this option is not correct. But if we look at our third option, remember with graph A, there is a 150 that there is a fixed 150 that needs to be paid, meaning that our equation needs to have 150. Okay, our equation needs to have the 150. Okay, so if we look at the third option, which says 150 plus 1.60 multiplied by the number of minutes. This makes sense because we can see that there is the 150, there is the fixed 150 that needs to be paid. So this is fixed, it needs to be paid regardless. And then the cost per minute is how much? Is 1 rand 60. So there's 150 and there is the cost per minute depending on the number of minutes that has been utilized or used. So graph A will match our third equation. So this makes sense. So now let's move to graph B. So graph B, there's only one option left, which is 250 per minute. So this makes sense as well because there's no fixed fee. In this case, there's no fixed fee, meaning that the cost per minute will be a bit higher. So the cost per minute is 250. So this is the prepaid option, number of minutes. So now we have answered question 2.3.1, and we will be moving to question 2.1.4. Question 0.1.4. Okay, so question 2.1.4 says that if Miss Malungelo makes calls that are less than 100 minutes per month, which option will be more economical for her? By economical, they mean cheaper. If she makes calls that are less than 100 per month, 100 minutes per month, which option will be more cheaper for her between option A and option B? So we can easily calculate that. So we can start with graph. We can start with graph A. And the equation for graph A is 150 plus 160, and then we can multiply by 100 because they said if she uses less than 100 minutes in a month. So if we plug this on our calculator, we will have 150 plus 1 rand 60. So it's 1 rand 60, not 160. 1 rand 60 multiplied by 100 minutes, the number of minutes. And we can see that it will cost her 310. Okay, so for graph B, let's do the same. Graph B, and we know that the equation for graph B is 250 multiplied by the number of minutes. So we'll just multiply by 100 minutes. And if we plug that on our calculator, we'll have 250 multiplied by 100, and our answer will be 250. So this is clear that between the two options, the one that will be economical or cheaper will be graph B. Or option B. So we can say graph B or option B. Option B. Okay, so now we are left with just one question, which is question 2.1.5. And we don't have enough space, so we can just erase everything. Okay. So we will answer question 2.1.5. So question 2.1.5 says that explain the term break even according to the given context. So in this context, break even, it is when the contract option and the prepaid have the same total cost for the same number of talk time minutes. This means that either options will have the same cost. So if you use option A, so for using option A, you will spend the same cost as using option B. So they are both equal. That's what break even means. So in short, we can just say it is when the contract option and the prepaid option have the same total cost. So it will cost the same for the same number of talk time minutes. So we are going to start with question 2.2. So we are told that Matapelo Community Service Garden gives members of the community to maintain one house, one garden principles to fight poverty. Table 2 below indicates the fixed area of the garden with different dimension. So what does that statement mean? So the fixed area means that for each garden, the area will be the same. That's why we are told there is a fixed area. So the area will be the same for all the gardens. Okay, so without wasting any time, let's go ahead and answer the set of questions given for this scenario or for this illustration. So we'll start with question 2.2.1. So question 2.2.1 says that give the name of the proportion represented in table 2. So we can see that on our table, which is table 2, we can see, so we have the length and the width. So we have the length and the width. So we can see that for garden 1 we have 2. For garden for width, so for garden 1 we have the length is 2 and the width is 32. And for garden 2, the length is 4 and the width is 60. And for garden 3, we can see that our length is not given, but our width is 12.8. And for garden 4, we can see that our length is 8 and our width is also 8. So to distinguish the proportion, we just have to observe on our table. So we can see that when the length is increasing, our width is decreasing. So we can see that the proportion in this case will be indirect. So our answer will be an indirect proportion based on that relationship that we just justified or identified. So it is an indirect proportion. And an indirect proportion is also called an inverse proportion. An inverse proportion. And if they were both increasing, we were going to have a direct proportion, not indirect. We were going to have a direct proportion if they were both increasing. But in this case, when the length is increasing, our width is decreasing. That's why we have an indirect proportion or an inverse proportion. Okay, so now let's move to the next question, which is question 2.2.2. 2.2.2. So question 2.2.2 says that calculate the maximum area of garden 5. You may use the formula area equals to length multiplied by width. So we are told that we might use this formula, which is area equals to length multiplied by width. So we are looking for the area of garden 5. So our area will be area equals to our length for garden 5 is 10 multiplied by our width, which is 6.4. So our area will be equals to 10 multiplied by 6.4. It will be 10 multiplied by 6.4. And our answer will be 64. Our area will be 64. So now let's move to question 2.2.3. 2.2.3. So question 2.2.3 says that, hence determine the value of A and B, the length of garden 3 and the width of garden 6. So we'll start with A. So we'll start with A for garden 3. So if we recall from our statement in our scenario, we were told that all these gardens has the same area. So the area of all these gardens is fixed, meaning that the area of each and every garden is 64. So the area of each and every garden is 64. So in this case, we are looking for A, which is the length of garden 3. So what we are going to do is that we are going to use the same formula. So we know that our area is fixed, meaning that the area is the same across all the gardens. So we will have 64 equals to our length, which is A, multiplied by the width of garden 3, which is 12.8. And now I'm going to teach you a very important trick in this case. So in this case, we can see that in the middle we have a multiple question sign. So if we want to remain with A, we don't take 12 to the other side. We don't take 12 to the other side. We need to divide by 12.8 so that A can remain the same, so that A can remain alone. So because it's a multiplication, we divide by 12.8. But if it was an addition or a subtraction, we're going to take the 12.8 to the other side, and when it comes to the other side, it was going to change its sign. But that won't apply here because in the middle we have a multiple sign. So it means that we are going to divide by 12.8. And remember that any number divided by itself, the answer will always be 1. So these two will cancel. Okay, so remember that what you do on your right hand side, you also need to do it on your left hand side, meaning that we are also going to divide by 12.8 on this side, and A will be equals to 64 divided by 12.8, and A will be equals to 5. Okay, and we do the same for B. We do the same for B, for garden 6. So we do the same thing. So our area is 64 and our length was given was 16 and our width was B. So we just divide by 16. The 16 will cancel, and B will be equals to 64 divided by 16. So let's do that. 64 divided by 16, the answer will be 4, meaning that our B will be equals to 4. Okay, so now we are done answering question 2.2.3, and we will be moving to question 2.2.4. Question 2.2.4. So question 2.2.4 says that which garden is square shaped from table to above. So square shaped means that our length and our width needs to be equal. So our length and our width needs to be equal. So if we look at table 2, we can see that the only time where our length was equals to our width was in garden 4, meaning that the answer will be garden 4, because our length is equals to our width. So our length was 8 and our width was also 8, meaning that this will be in a square shape and the answer will be garden 4. So now we are moving to question 2.3. So we are told that the municipal manager donates cylindrical tanks to the residents for garden irrigation. Each tank is 2.5 meter high and its diameter is 150 centimeter. So we can see that we are given a JoJo tank picture and a JoJo tank diagram. So we are given 2 diagrams and we have a set of questions that we need to answer based on the information that we are given and the diagram that is provided. So we will start with question 2.2.3. So question 2.2.3 says that determine the radius of the tank in meters. So if we check on our diagram and the information that is provided, we can see that we are given a diameter which is equals to 150 centimeters. 150 centimeters. And remember guys that if we are given a diameter, we can be able to calculate our radius. We can be able to calculate our radius because our radius is equals to our diameter divided by 2. So to make it more clearer is that let's say we have a circle. All right, so if we have a circle, our diameter is a point from an edge to another edge. So this is our diameter. This is our diameter. This is our diameter. And then if we have, let's say, another circle, the same circle again. So we can just say the same circle again. So any point from the center to an edge, this is our radius. This is our radius, meaning that in this circle, a point from the center to an edge will be our radius. That's why to get our radius, we have to divide our diameter by 2. That's why we have to divide our diameter by 2 to get our radius. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So now, without wasting more time, let's go ahead and calculate our radius. So we can see that our diameter is given in centimeter, meaning that we need to convert it back to meters. Okay, and we will start by providing a short note that you need to understand. So we know that if we are converting from centimeter to meter, we divide by 100. So converting from centimeter to meter, we divide by 100. And if we are converting from meter to centimeter, we multiply by 100. We multiply by 100. So in this case, we are going to take the first note, because we are converting from centimeter to meter, meaning that we are going to divide by 100. So we are going to divide our radius by 100 to convert it into meter. So we are going to say 150 divided by 100. And let's plug that into our calculator. So 150 divided by 100, we will get 1.5. It's 150 divided by 100, we will get 1.5. We will get 1.5 meter. So this is still our diameter. This is still our diameter. And to get our radius, we take our diameter, which is 1.5 meters, and divide by 2. And our radius will be equals to, so it's 1.5 divided by 2. And our radius will be equals to 0.75 meters. Okay, so now we are done with question 2.3.1, and we'll be moving to question 2.3.2. So we can just make a bit of space, and don't forget that we have extra classes, guys. So if you want to join our extra classes, it's only 80 Rand per month, and you get to attend 2 times per week and 8 times in a month. So you can WhatsApp the contact provided below. Okay, so now let's move to question 2.3.2. So 2.3.2. So question 2.3.2 says that hence calculations the capacity of the tank to the nearest 100 liters, and then we are told that note that 1000 liters is equals to 1 meter cube. So we are even given the formula, so we need to calculate the volume of the cylinder. So we know that from the previous question, our radius was 0.75 meters. Okay, so in this question, we need to calculate the volume of the cylinder. So the formula says that 3.142 multiplied by r squared. So the r stands for radius. If you're asked to calculate the volume and in the formula you see r, just know that the r stands for radius, and then the h stands for height. The h stands for height. So now let's go ahead and replace our radius and our height in our formula. So we will say 3.142 multiplied by our height, and we know, not by our height, by our radius, and we know that our radius is 0.75 our radius is 0.75. It's 0.75 to the power 2, and then multiply by our height, which is 2.5. So if you look at the Jojo tank diagram, you will see our height. It's given there. It's 2.5 meters. So now we will go ahead and calculate our volume. So we can just calculate it here. So it will be 3.142 multiplied by 0.75 to the power 2 multiplied by 2.5. And our answer will be 4.4118437.5 meter cube. So this is our volume, and this is our volume. And if we go back to our question, we will see that our answer needs to be in liters. So to convert this into meters, we multiply by 1000, because even the note says that 1000 liters is equals to 1 meter. So to get our liters, we just multiply our answer by 1000 to convert it into liters. So if we multiply by 1000, we will get 4418.4375 liters. And then we are told to give our answer to the nearest 1000 liters, meaning that we can either have 4000 liters or 5000 liters in this case. So we are going to check our second digit. So if our second digit is greater than or equals to 5, it means that our 4 will now become 5. And if our second digit is less than 5, it means that our 4 will remain the same. Okay, that's called rounding off. So in this case, our 4 is less than 5, meaning that we are going to round off our answer to 4000 liters, and this will be our final answer. And if you have any questions, you can just leave your comment in the comment box, and then I will reply and try and assist, make sure that you understand. Okay, so now let's move to the last question for question 2, or for 2.2, or for 2.3. So we will move to question 2.3.3. So question 2.2.3 says that calculate the surface area of the tank in square meters. So even here we are given the formula. So we are calculating the surface. The formula that we are given is 3.142 multiplied by the diameter and multiplied by the height, which is h. Okay, so we'll go ahead and replace. So we'll have 3.142, and we know that our diameter is 1.5. So our diameter is 150 centimeters, but after converting it into meters, we found 1.5. So we worked that out in question 2.3.1. And if you can't recall, you can just go back. You can just rewind the video and go back to question 2.3.1 and see how we calculated our diameter. Okay, and then we multiply by our height, which is 2.5. So now let's plug that into our calculator. So it's 3.142 multiplied by 1.5 multiplied by 2.5, and our answer is 11.78 square meter. And that brings us to the end of question 2.3. So we are going to start with question 3. We are going to start with question 3. So we are told that, so without wasting any time, we will go ahead and answer question 3.1. So we are told that below is Kara Junior School's income and expenditure list for the 2019 and 2020 financial year. Table 3, Kara Junior School income and expenditure statement. So this statement is divided into two parts. It has the income part and the expenditure part. So it has the income and the expenditure part. Expenditure. Okay, so now let's go ahead and answer the set of questions for this question. So we'll start with question 3.1.1. Question 3.1.1. So question 3.1.1 says that define the term income in the given context. So this should be easy to answer. So we know that income is the total amount of money that is received. So income is the total amount of money that is received. We can say received or earned. So if you earn money, that money is called income. And if you receive money, that money is also called income. So now let's go to question 3.1.2. 3.1.2. So question 3.1.2 says that name two items that could be classified as service and maintenance. So we can start with grass cutting. So grass cutting would be part of maintenance. So if you have grass and you cut them, that's part of maintenance. So we can say grass cutting, and we can also say electricity. We can also say electricity. Okay, so yeah, we can just name these two, but you can also name other items as well. So the answer is not limited to only these two. So you can also name other answers as well. So now let's move to the next question, which is question 3.1.3. 3.1.3. So question 3.1.3 says that the school principal indicates that a school will not be able to pay all expenses in the 2020 financial year. Critically comment on the statement made by the school principal. So to answer this question, we need to check the total income, and we also need to check the total expenditure. So I'm going to explain these two terms again. So we need to check the total income. So this is all the money received. And then total expenditure is all the money spent. So this is the money that the school has spent. So if the principal is saying that the school won't be able to pay all its expenses, it means that what we received is less than what we anticipate to spend. So if we check our total income, we can see that it was 905,000. 905,000. So this is the money that was received by the school. And then total expenditure or total expenses was 1,052,600. So we can see that the school is spending more than what it has received. That's why the principal is saying that it won't be able to cover all its expenses. So our explanation can be yes, because total expenses is greater than total income. Okay, so now we have answered question 3.1.3, and let's move to question 3.1.4. So 3.1.4. So question 3.1.4 says that give one example of the fixed expense from the table above. So by fixed expense, they mean expenses that even in the following month or even in the following year, that expense will still be there. It's not something that you can try to limit your spending by cutting it. So it's something that it will always be there. So if we look at our expenses, we can see that they are salaries. So salaries will always be there. So teachers will always be paid salaries. So our answer will be salaries. So it's not something that we can take out of our expenses. Okay, so now let's move to the next question, which is question 3.1.5. So before we do that, let's quickly create more space so that we can be able to have enough space. And if you need study guides, we do have study guides for maths literacy. If you need study guides or if you want to join our extra classes, you can just reach us on WhatsApp on the number that is shown on the screen. So now let's move to question 3.1.5. 3.1.5. So question 3.1.5 says that identify one expense that has decreased by 50% from 2019 to 2020. So 50% means that if in 2020 the expense was 10,000, it means that now in 2020 it is 5,000. So by 50% it means by half. It's an expense that has decreased by half. So now let's look at our table. If we look at our table, we can see that telephone and internet was 22,000 in 2019, and now in 2020 it was then 11,000. So we can see that this expense has decreased by 50%. Okay, so our answer will be telephone and internet. Telephone and internet. Okay, so now let's move to our next question, which is question 3.1.6. 3.1.6. So question 3.1.6 is that the school administrator states that the percentage difference in total expenses between the 2 years is greater than 11.73. Verify this claim by calculations. You may use the formula that is given. So we need the percentage difference. So we are given the formula to work this out. So we are looking for the percentage difference. So the formula says that total expenses in 2020, which is 1,052,600 minus total expenses in 2019, which is 942,100. Okay, divide by total expense in 2019, which is 942,100. Because we are looking for a percentage difference, we need to multiply by 100 so that our answer can come out as a percentage. So now, without wasting any time, let's go ahead and work this out on our calculator. So we're going to say 1,052,600 minus 942,100 divided by 942,100 multiplied by 100. And we can see that our answer is 11.73. 11.73%. So if we look at our question again, the question says that the school administrator states that the percentage difference in total expenses between the 2 years is greater than 11.73. But the answer that we got is 11.73. So it's not greater, but it is equal to 11.73. So we can conclude by saying that the statement is invalid. The statement is invalid. Okay, so now let's move to question 3.1.7. 3.1.7. So question 3.1.7 says that the school charges each learner a registration fee of 50 Rand. If the ratio of boys to girls is 2:3, determine the number of girls in the junior school. So first we need to calculate the total number of learners. Number of learners, both boys and girls. So how do we do this? So if we check on our statement, we are told that the school charges each learner a registration fee of 50 Rand. And if we go back to our table and check registration fee, we can see that the total was 10,000. So to get the number of learners, we take the 10,000 and divide by 50. So if we take 10,000 and divide by 50, we will get the total number of learners in this school. So it's 10,000 divided by 50. Our answer will be 200, meaning that this school has 200 learners. So now let's go back to our question. Our question says that if the ratio of boys to girls is 2:3, so 2 is representing boys and 3 is representing girls. Determine the number of girls in the junior school. So in this case, we take the total number of learners, which is 200, and multiply by the ratio of girls, which is 3, and divide by the total ratio. So total ratio, we just add 2 and 3, and if we add 2 and 3, we will get 5. So to get the number of girls, we will come and say 200 multiplied by 3 over 5, and we can see that this school has 120 girls. And to get the number of boys, if we were asked to get the number of boys, we were going to do the same, but we're now going to take the ratio of boys, which is 2, meaning that we are going to say 200 multiplied by 2 over 5, and this is for boys. So we're going to say 200 multiplied by 2 divided by 5, and our answer was going to be 80, meaning that the school has 80 boys. Now let's work on 3.2. 3.2. So we are told that the school will paint a rectangular wall with a total length of 80 meters and a uniform height of 2.1 meters. The paint with a spread rate of 2.5 liters per 10 square meters will be used to paint the wall with 2 coats. So what does the 2.5 liters per 10 square meter mean? It means that to paint 10 square meters, we will need 2.5 liters of paint. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and answer the questions that follows. So we will start with question 3.2.1. So question 3.2.1 says that calculate the area of the wall to be painted in square meters, and we are told that we may use the following formula. Okay, so we are given the formula. So we are looking for the area of the wall. Okay, and our formula is length multiplied by height. So if we look at our scenario, we can see that our length was 80 meters and our height was 2.1 meters, meaning that in our formula we are going to replace length by 80. So our length is 80 meters and our height is 2.1 meters. Okay, so if we multiply the two, we will be able to get our area. So we will go ahead and say 80 multiplied by 2.1. So our area is 168 square meters. So remember that area is given in square meters. So after getting your area, you need to add the m squared. So this stands for square meter. So the m stands for meter and this is the square. That's why we say square meter. So this is our area. So now let's move ahead. Let's move on to the next question, which is question 3.2.2. Question 3.2.2. So question 3.2.2 says that, hence, calculate the number of liters of paint required to paint the wall. So we know that our wall is, so we use the area of the wall. So we know that our wall is 168 square meters and we need to divide by 10 and multiply by 2.5. Remember, we are told that 10 square meter will 10 square meter will be painted by 2.5 liters of paint. So this is the liters of paint to paint 10 square meters. That's why we divided by 1. That's why we took the 168 and then divided by 10, because for every 10 square meter we will use 2.5 liters of paint. Okay, so we are going to say 168 divided by 10. 168 divided by 10 multiplied by 2.5, and our answer will be is correct. So it's 168 divided by 10 so our answer will be 42. But remember, guys, we are told that the wall will be painted 2 times, meaning that we still need to multiply by 2. So if we go back to our scenario, we are told that the paint with a spread rate of 2.5 liters per 10 square meter will be used to paint the wall with two coats. That's why we have to include the 2 as well, because we are doing it twice. And our final answer will be the number of liters will be 42 times 2, which is 84. So we'll need 84 liters of paint to calculate to paint 168 square meter wall. Okay, so now let's move to our next question, which is question 3.2.3. So question 3.2.3 says that the school will paint the wall if the day temperature is more than 25 degrees Celsius. So the SGB member claims that if the temperature is 86.6 Fahrenheit, the school will not paint the wall. Verify this claim by showing all calculations, and we are told that we may use the formula that is given. So we are looking for the degree Celsius. So now we come and replace the Fahrenheit, which is 86.6 minus 32 divided by 1.8. So now we can just plug this into our calculator. So it's 1.8. So it's 86.6 minus 32 divided by 1.8, and our answer is 30.33. 30.33. So the question says that the school will paint the wall if the temperature is more than 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, and the SGB member claims that if the temperature is 86.6 Fahrenheit, the school will not paint the wall. Verify this claim by showing all calculations. So we can see that the temperature is above 25, meaning that the school will paint the wall. Now let's work on question 4. Okay. So we are told that before we get into that, we can see that question 4 only has 4.1. And as usual, we are given a scenario that we are going to use to answer a set of questions. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and work on 4.1. Okay, so we are told that Miss Khan uses her fitness watch tracker and smartphone app to record her daily workout. Below is the table showing her results. So we are given table 4, which has Miss Khan's daily running records. So we can see that the end time was 12:45, which is 1:45, and she covered 5,426 steps, and the running time was 21 minutes and 0 seconds, and calories spent was 1,220, 1,230, 1,232, and distance covered was 5.89 kilometers, and her daily step target was 6,000. Okay, so now let's go ahead and work on the first question. So we are told to study the information at table 4 to answer the questions that follows. Okay, so now let's go ahead and work on question 4.1. So question 4.1 says that write down the ratio of the steps covered to. So once we are working on a ratio, we will be given two different set of information that we need to, that are key. So we'll be given the same information, and once we see the word two, just know that they are referring to these two dots. Okay, so this will be our ratio. So if we look at our question, the question says that write down the ratio of the steps covered, meaning that in this part we are going to write steps covered 2. So this is 2 daily target steps 2. So the 2, they are referring to the two dots. 2 daily target steps, daily target steps. Okay, so now we can be able to replace both sides with actual figures. So if we look on our table, we can see that the steps covered were 5,426. So we'll come and write 4,000, not 4,000, 5,000. So it's 5,426 is 2 daily target steps. So daily target steps is 6,000. 6,000. So this is our ratio. But again, if we go back to our question, they say that our ratio needs to be in its simplest form. So the most basic common factor in this case would be 2, meaning that if we are dividing the right hand side by 2, we can also divide the right hand side by 2, and the answer that we will get won't be in a fraction or decimal, so it will still be a whole number or a discrete value. Okay, so if we divide 5,426 by 2, we will get 2,713 is to 6,000 divided by 2. This should be 3,000. You will get 3,000. So this will be our final ratio in its simplified forms. So the most important thing here is to get the common factor, the number that when you divide by it on both sides, on the left side and the right side, you will still get a whole number. Okay. So now let's move to the next question, which is question 4.2. Okay. So question 4.2 says that show by calculations that her speed is 3 minutes and 33 seconds per kilometer. So we need to calculate the speed, but in terms of minutes and seconds. So to calculate the speed, we will take minutes covered. So she ran for 21 minutes, and we will divide by the kilometers that she covered. So she ran for 21 minutes, and she ran how many kilometers? 5.89. Okay. So now we'll be able to get the speed in terms of minutes and seconds. So if we say 29 divided by 5.89, our answer will be 3.5653 minutes. So the 3 will be our minute, and the 5653 will be our seconds. So we can see that she ran for 3 minutes, and now we need to calculate our seconds. And how do we get our seconds? So we know that if we remove the 3, which is the 3 minutes, we will have 0.5653, and we know that in a minute we have how many seconds? We have 60 seconds, meaning that if we multiply by 60, we will be able to get the number of seconds. Okay, so it will be 3 minutes. So now let's multiply 0.5653 by 60. And if we do that, we can see that the answer is 33, meaning that she ran for 3 minutes and 33 seconds. So we were able to prove that. Okay, so now let's move to our next question, which is question 4.3. So question 4.3 says that name 2 other workout activities that Miss Kane can track and record using her fitness watch. So she can track, so if she's walking and she wants to track that, she can track that walking. And if she's cycling, which is riding a bicycle, and she also wants to track that, she can also track that. So those are just 2 of many things that the smartwatch can track. Cycling. So the answers are not limited to only these 2. Okay. So now let's move to the next question. But before we do that, let's create some space for that. And don't forget, guys, we do have extra classes, which are 80 rands per month. So you get to attend 2 times in a week, and 8 times, not 4, 8 times in a month. You only pay the 80 rand once at the beginning of the month, and then you attend 2 times in a week. Okay, and if you want to join, you can just text the number on your screen. Okay, so now let's move to question 4.4. So question 4.4 says that convert 5.89 kilometer to miles if 1 mile is equals to 1.608 kilometers. Okay, so we need to convert kilometers to miles. So how many kilometers did Miss Khan ran. So she ran 5.89 kilometers. So if we want to convert this into miles, we are told that 1 mile is equals to 1.608 kilometers. So to convert this into mile, we divide the 5.89 by 1.608 kilometers, because we are told that the reason we are dividing by 1.608 kilometers is because we are told that 1 mile is equals to 1.608 kilometers. That's why we are dividing the kilometers that she managed to run by 1.608. So if she ran 5.89 kilometers, and we want to check how much that is in terms of miles, we just divide the two. And then if we do that, so if we say 5.89 divide by 1.068, we can see that she ran 3.66 miles. What does this mean? This means that 5.89 kilometers is equivalent or is equals to 3.66 miles. So remember guys, in our country we use the term kilometer to measure the distance, but there are countries wherein they don't use the term kilometer, they use the term miles. Okay, so it's still one and the same thing, so they both measure the distance. Okay, so don't be intimidated by seeing the word miles, so it's still one and the same thing. Okay, so now let's move to the next question, which is question 4.5. So question 4.5 says that Ms. Ken indicates that she needs to double her target steps to burn 2,464 calories. Show by calculations whether her claim is valid or not. So they are saying Ms. Ken needs to double her target steps. So if we look at our table, we can see that her daily target step was 6,000. So they are saying that she needs to double it so that she can burn more calories, which is basically losing more fat in your body. So doubling that, it means that now her daily target steps will be 6,000 multiplied by 2. That's doubling. Okay, so her daily target steps will be 12,000. Okay, and now we need to calculate the calories burnt. Okay, so what we need to do now, we need to come and calculate the calories burnt. Okay, so we take the 12,000, which is our target, and divide by the calories, divide by the steps that she covers. So she covers 5,426. So these are the steps covered, and then we multiply by the calories burnt per these steps. Okay, so now we multiply by the calories burnt per these steps, and if we look at our table, we can see that if she covers 5,426 steps, calories that she will be able to burn will be 1,232. So now we will see if it's true that if she doubles her daily target, will she be able to burn 2,464 calories. So this is the formula that we use So now let's just go ahead and plug everything on our calculator to get our answer. So we are going to say 12,000 divided by 5,426 multiplied by 1,232, and our answer will be 2724.659. So if she doubles her daily steps target, she will only be able to burn 2,724 steps. Okay, meaning that her statement is invalid, because she said that if she doubles her daily steps, she will only be able to burn 2,464. Okay, so which is less than what we calculated, meaning that her statement is invalid. Her statement is invalid or not correct. Okay.